Today's story is the act of a betrayal. We have OP, who has a sister, and we also have OP, who has a fiance. Well, you can kind of see where I'm going with these three names because it's one of the most biggest betrayals we've ever read on this entire channel. "Oh, I'm sorry, please," was the first statement I could utter to the bright-looking figure standing in front of me. His response, cool smile, almost made me feel more guilty for discomforting such a branded masculine person. "It's okay, no harm, don't be alarmed, I'm sorry, please." Those words came out with an attractive voice from the unknown young man I've just hit with my cart. Before I could bend over to pick up the bottle from him, he already did. "I'm Oliver, nice to meet you," said the good-looking young man. "Would you mind if I desired to know your name?" I lost thought for 2 seconds because I was already swept away by the sexy, cool voice. "Hello, what do you say?" That statement brought me back into consciousness. "Yeah, sure, I don't mind. My name's Amanda, and nice to meet you." "Oh, that's a lovely name. If I were born a girl, I'd request my parents on my birthday to name me that." "And how would you be able to do that? Or have you forgotten you'd be born a baby with tiny little fingers and legs, and obviously with a voice that could only cry and laugh at the moment? How would you be able to communicate with them?" "Well, I'm sure I'll find a way. As the saying goes, if there's a will, there's a way." "Oh, so you think you already have the will to dictate your name after spending less than an hour into this new world?" Well, he laughed upon hearing that statement from me. It seemed he was about to say something or ask a question, and my phone rang. And it was a call from Sophia. I immediately dropped the call, faced Oliver, and told him I had to go and catch up with my sister. He replied, "Yes, please, you should." That courteous reply almost wanted me to go ahead and get him to ask me out, but I did not stay back. But I know I couldn't do that. That would be uncourteous for me as a lady. As I was about to place my hands on the carts to steer it, he softly said, "By the way, I'd love to see you again. Can I please have your contact, if you don't mind?" Again, I paused for about 2 seconds, then struggled to mumble a yes. I could see the excitement on his face when I agreed to give him my number, so I called out my number, which he dialed immediately, and gave me a call on the spot, requesting that I save his number too, which I did. I finally steered the cart towards the reception, paid for the costumes and makeup kits, and finally left, with a salient amusement in my heart because I met Oliver. Update number 1 3 days later. Well, it's been 3 days since I've met Oliver at the mall, and I've been expecting this call, but it seemed the guy wasn't as agitated as I was to hear from him, or was probably just trying to play expensive. Well, quote, "I'm not cheap too, so you know," was my thought I spoke out aloud around 7 p.m. My phone rang while I was helping Bob, my baby brother, with his assignment. Bob, who was already looking for a reason to take a break, ran to pick the phone up, where I plugged it in and then he brought it to me. "Who could this be?" I asked rhetorically since it was an unknown number. With a little hesitation, I attempted to swipe to answer, but the call got dropped before I could do that. I wanted to return the call, but I could not because the call came in again, and this time around I picked it up instantly. "Hello," I said sparingly. The person on the other end of the call answered, "Hello." It was a masculine voice, and I immediately recognized it to be Oliver's. Of a truth, I wasn't as excited as I'd been while expecting his call, but now that it came, the feeling wasn't exceptional. "This is Oliver, and we met at the mall on Tuesday, do you remember?" Oliver." I stretched the name to give the impression that I was trying to search my memory bank to recollect the name. "Oh, Oliver, yeah, I remember you. How are you?" I've been good." "Well, I'm glad you are," I replied anxiously for the next thing that he would say. We talked, with most of his words causing me to laugh. He was just so funny, and he had a way with words. Well, after about 5 minutes into the call, he finally asked if I'd be free to go out with him on Saturday, which is in 2 days from now. I already have plans, Oliver." He went on to ask if Sunday would work, and I said yes. I could literally sense the happiness at the other end of the call. Of course. I was happy too.
So it's a date. I'll text you the address of the restaurant that we'll meet at, said Oliver,
and bade me goodbye and hung up the phone. What's up, everybody? Mr. Redito here. So this story has about 3 more updates. Update number 2 did not come out for 4 whole months. So you're probably wondering what happened with OP and Oliver at the date. Well, I have that information here. If you guys are new to the channel, I read stories every single day. If that's something you're into, consider subscribing by pressing that big ol' red subscribe button underneath the video. And let's jump into update number 2, 4 months later. Alright, so guys, it's already been 4 months since I started dating Oliver. The first 2 months were scintillating. He would always call me, buy me gifts, and take me out to the beach. He was just there for me. When he invited me over to his place, I got to know he was from a rich family, with his father recognized as one of the leading entrepreneurs in the city. And there was word on the street that Oliver would take up the family business after his dad retires, since he is the first and only son, and he really does have the business vitality. In the 5th month of our relationship, I was admitted into college to study public health, while he was in the final year of the MBA. As fate would have it, his house wasn't too far from my school, so he'd always come on the weekends to scoop me up and spend the weekend with me. One certain weekend, he came to pick me up per usual. I was outside with my girlfriends just gisting when he entered the hall. They all recognized him since they were used to seeing him on the weekends. He came closer to us and hugged me and told him I'd never knew he'd come as early as this. I told him he should give me some minutes to enter my room and change. So I left him outside with my friends while I stepped inside to freshen up and pack my stuff for the weekend. It took me about 10 minutes before I was done, and I stepped out to see him talking with one of my friends, because others had left already, and my eyes caught his hands on his phone dialing a number. But I didn't give much thought to it and told him I was ready. I bid my friend goodbye, walked out of the building with Oliver, entered his car and drove away. The original plan was to go straight to his parents' apartment where he was living, but he told me he wanted to make a quick stop at the office. I was glad to, since I've never been to his dad's company before. Well, we're here. Here we are, said Oliver. Welcome to our company. What? Is this your father's company? I said aloud, almost losing my composure because of my awe. Of course, before then I had a good idea his family was rich, but I never thought they could own such a tremendous building as this, which is a good pointer to the huge money flow in the building. Only a few people would not know about Buchanan Conglomerate. They're the leading company in real estate business, holding up hundreds of high-rise buildings in the city. How come? It doesn't bear your surname, Jeff, I asked anxiously, trying to justify myself for not knowing about the company since there was these while I started dating him. Well, Buchanan's my dad's first name. Since he started the company on his own, he gave it his name, not his surname. When he said, I gave myself an acquittal from self-judgment, claiming that there's no way I'd known that unless he told me. He showed me his office and asked me to feel at home while he went to join a board meeting, and came out about 2 hours after looking so tired. We ate, retired back to his house, and where he told me to tell him more about my family, and that he'd like to get to know me more about my stuff and my place. I told him about my family, how I'd lost my dad to an occupational accident when I was 10, and how my mom single-handedly raised my siblings and myself. When I was done talking, he went inside to the toilet to ease himself, and while he was there, his phone rang, and I checked to see who was calling. It was an unknown number, which seemed familiar to me. I confirmed it from my phone book. Alas, it was one of my friend's phone contacts that he was talking to at my school while I was packing up my belongings. Apparently, they've exchanged numbers, and now she's calling him late in the night. Why is Flea calling you? And how did she save your number? I asked him. Nothing much. I just collected it in case I tried to reach you while you're not at your phone. I didn't believe him. Also, I don't want him to have an impression of distrust, so I let him off. My school was on break, so I was back home. Oliver and I agreed the previous day we met that he could visit me at my home today. I'd already told my mom and my siblings, even though I try not to show my anxiety to my family. I was actually anxious since it was the first time he would come around to see me in my house. Different thoughts were running through my mind, especially about his impression. Well, I wasn't ashamed of my house or my family in any way. I was just anxious like any other lady would be at their boyfriend's first visit to their home. I stylishly talked to my brother into behaving himself for the day by promising to take him out, if he did well. And Sophia, my big sister, who had been taunting me because of my anxiety, initially canceled her plans to go to a party she intended, so as to see my boyfriend and witness how this would all pay out. I was in the living room watching the television absent-minded when Bob just came waltzing inside shouting, "He's here! He's here!" Then I heard the sound of a car getting parked, so I rushed to the window and peeped. It turned out my little brother was right, Oliver had arrived. There was a knock on the door, and Bob rushed to open it, and I followed in suit. Oliver, was looking stunning as usual. I ushered him inside, and it seemed he was anxious as heck. He sat down, offered him cold water, and asked him what he'd like to eat. He politely replied anything, not wanting to appear choosy, even though we both knew that he could be picky regarding food and places to eat. Then my mom entered the living room, greeted him, and asked him if he was comfortable, and retired back inside. As I went to the kitchen to get something for him, Sophia came out of his room and familiarized herself with Oliver. I could then hear their talks and laughs from the kitchen. I wasn't surprised since I've already known my sister to be a nosy, talkative type. Well, we ate and went upstairs to my room where we talked and stepped out together to get a cinema to watch a movie. Sophia and Bob begged to tag along, which I protested against, but Oliver, who was trying his best to act nice, agreed. We left the house, leaving Mom behind at home with the promise to get her something nice while coming back. The outing, it was fun, although I spent most of the time just looking out for Bob to ensure he didn't do anything funny. I knew he could be troublesome. Even though Sophia was supposed to look after him as the oldest, could care less and be only after buying stuff with Oliver's money. Update number 4. The break was over, I resumed school, and to avoid distractions and focus on my studies since it was the beginning of a new season. Oliver and I decided he would not come pick us up at the weekend as usual for the first 3 weeks. So, we only communicated through calls and chats. We were already 7 months into our relationship. That was the first session that we had really reduced communication, and it didn't bother me because I knew it was something that we could handle. And should not have a toll on our relationship at all, but it seemed to be wrong. The second week after the resumption, I called Oliver to hear from him because I missed him, but he didn't pick up the call. I tried it for the second time and third time before I gave up. I sluggishly concluded that probably he's just busy, and decided to wait for him to return the call. I didn't see his return call for the next 4 days, and he wasn't online to reply to the chats. At this point, it was obvious something's not right, but I couldn't beat myself up because of it. Since there was nothing else that I could do at this point, it was obvious something is not right, though. Little did I know that since the day Oliver came to visit us, he had exchanged contacts with Sophia, and since then they've been secretly going out together, and in the process they fell in love with each other, which totally displaced Oliver's feelings for me. It was almost a week since I last spoke to O. Then I couldn't help it. But I got worried, and I could not even imagine what could have gone wrong. I wanted to call them again, but before I remember, I left my phone back at my friend's place. So I decided to use my roommate's phone to call him since I knew his contact offhand. I dialed the number and it rang as usual. To my shock, he answered the call, obviously not knowing I was the one that called until I told him it was me. I noticed he was surprised as well, but he tried so much not to show it. I asked him why he had been not returning my calls, and he apologized and said he's out of town for a meeting, and had been very busy. I told him just a simple message explaining would not have hurt. I asked if he was back in town, and he replied no, that he would not be back until next weekend. I tried to understand and quit complaining. I even begged him at least to reply to my text messages if he's too busy to answer a phone call, that I've missed him, which he promised to do, by the way. Since then, it appears as though we were cool. He would still come on weekends to pick me up, but one day, he told me how now he has a meeting and he'll be attending every Sunday. And location of it is out of town. So he'll have to travel on Saturday evenings, which means I would not be able to stay till Sunday evening as I did before. I agreed without debate since it's a matter of work, but I was wrong. It was his way to get me out of his place so that my sister can come to his place on Sunday and spend time together. Well, this went on for months, and he began to bring up excuse after excuse for not coming to pick me up on the weekends, claiming he was busy with meetings and travelings. I never for once suspected that he could be cheating on me, because, well, on the outside he looked so innocent and sweet. Some weeks after, I read on a blog that Oliver's dad's company would be organizing a fundraising event the next week. Thursdays, and the event will be gathered of elites, philanthropists, and business moguls to donate money to support charity organizations in the city. After reading it, I was surprised and disappointed Oliver did not mention the important event to me at all, knowing that it was a great opportunity for me to meet his parents since they will be back in the country for the event. That action raised a lot of questions in me. Does he not want to introduce me to his parents? Is he avoiding me? What's going on here? I had no one to answer my questions, and I could not make assumptions either. So I decided to take the bull by the horn and find out what's happening. Since it was on a Thursday, I could not go to the event because I had a test, and I didn't even have the event access card because Oliver did not forward it to me. So I decided to go on Saturday after I'm done with school engagements. On Saturday morning, I left for Oliver's apartment. As I got to his living room, I saw what looks like my sister's bag on one of the sofas. But I thought I was overthinking, so I went straight to his bedroom. As I got closer, I could hear a lady's voice already, and as I entered the room, I saw Oliver and Sophia, half naked, sprawled across the bed. I was shocked to the bone and could not believe my eyes, so I screamed and started crying profusely, not knowing who to vent my anger on. My cheating boyfriend or my backstabbing sister? Wow. I was very wrath, and before I did something dangerous, I rushed out of the bedroom. My older sister, well, she tried to run after me, but Oliver held her and told her to allow me just to calm down and vent for a little bit. As I got to the living room and lifted my bag to leave, the bag that I dropped on the sofa when I came in, I saw a white document paper with a big heading that said, Bank Statement. Update number 5, Final Update. It wasn't actually the heading of the paper that caught my attention, but it was the fact that the statement only featured one transaction, and the single transaction was a credit of CAD, Canadian, 80 million. The big figure retained my attention and initiated an immediate curiosity that overwhelmed my sadness about being betrayed at the moment. I paused and read through the transaction details, including the date of the transaction, transaction ID, and the accounts involved. Immediately, I got a hunch that something fishy was going on. Quickly, I took out my phone and snapped a clear photo of the document. Upon getting home, I did not bother about the reporting of the evil act to my mother at the moment. I was more pumped to find out everything about the document I've seen. So, I forwarded the screenshot to a friend that works in a bank to confirm the nature of the account that was debited $70,000 and the other account that received the lump sum. It turned out that I was correct in my guess. Oliver's dad rerouted the funds raised by people of goodwill to help the less privileged into their personal accounts as opposed to the terms and conditions of the fundraiser. A whole CAD 70 million. Shouted my roommate when I told her about it, and, well, that's so freaking corrupt and wicked, said another one. I never knew that Oliver and his family are so knee-deep in corruption, I responded. At that point, I was at the crossroads about what I should do. Of course, The next line of action was obvious, and that was to report them to the FCAC. But my feet got a little cold about it, considering Oliver was still my boyfriend 3 days ago. Yeah, I hate and detest him for what he's done to me, and I had any opportunity to avenge myself, I would. But I wasn't ready to go as far as getting him and his family arrested, and, well, probably ending up in jail. I didn't know what to do, but then one of my roommate's counsels saved me from my dilemma. She asked me what I have done if the person involved was a total stranger. Would I have hesitated in filing a report to get them apprehended? My answer was no. There's no other way around it. It's a despicable offense, and these people, I don't know, it's their hard-earned money. We're talking about their hard-earned money here. And it's a fund that would save a lot of people and make their lives better. How can someone who has enough already try to steal such a fund like this? My roommate replied with, "Good one. If you could assess the situation in this regard, why then should it be any way different because it involves your ex-boyfriend?" I was speechless for a few seconds. Afterward, I picked up my phone, dialed the FCAC's toll line, and told them I have a case to report. Well, the FCAC worked on my report and initiated an investigation. And during their investigation, they found out that the Buchanan family had been in business of carting off communal funds for their personal use for the past few years. The investigation uncovered some other dirty plays going on in their company, and they were found guilty of multiple crimes. At first, they were arrested, but later released on bail till the investigators are able to collate exactly the solid evidence to charge them in court. However, Oliver did not yet know I was the whistleblower. But one of my hallmates that exchanged contacts with Oliver, well, some time ago, he came to pick me up at his place, told Oliver I was the one that reported the cases. She's a backstabber and a rat. Since then, he's been calling and texting me, but I've been ignoring them as well. You can imagine he did not call me at all since the day I caught him with my sister, but now that he's in trouble, he would call me nonstop. What a goat he is. After it dawned on him I would not be picking up his call, he came to my hostel with shame and pity written all over his face. At first, I did not want to come out of my room and meet him, but my friends begged me to at least listen to what he had to say. "Please help me. Our lives might get destroyed soon. Only you can help us," said Oliver. Can you imagine he came to beg me so that I can retract my statement to the investigators and claim that I've made a false report? And that I made it up so that the fraud charges can just be dropped. I was so surprised this guy was still looking for cunning ways to get himself out of this mess that he buried himself in. And he dared to involve me in perjury. It further dawned on me how that he never cared for me, but cares for himself alone. It was further enraging and told him blankly, I would ensure I avail myself any time I'm called for a witness against him. That statement hit him like a ton of bricks and made him lose his cool. He had resorted to a threat. He told me if I did not retract my report, I would lose my life. At that moment, I was more sure how evil he actually was, and I had a perception that would not be the first time he's threatened somebody's life. I informed the lead investigator about Oliver's visit and his threat, and I was told not to panic, that very soon he would lose his freedom to walk around. Talk less of threatening someone's life. Well, a few weeks after, they were arraigned in court and received a ruling to be sentenced to prison. I made sure I would be in the courtroom when the ruling was made so I can look at the face of him when he was told he would be encaged and placed for years. As fate would have it, the judge hit the gavel on the wood and sentenced him to 15 years imprisonment on multiple counts of charges. I was elated to see the sadness on his face while I would meet his gaze with a smile, and I did exactly that. At the same time, I was happy that I could have saved thousands of lives from having the funds raised for them squandered by some corrupt family. The government seized their properties and they lost everything in the twinkle of an eye, including the company's assets and their financial investment. My sister, on the other hand, became shameful to our family and everyone who heard what she did. I didn't go home since the day I called her because I could not afford to see that deceptive face of a sister. I was told she could not come home as well, even though my mom had tried reaching out to her so that she could settle things between us. I, for one, don't care whatever happens to her since it's obvious she never wanted my happiness by surprising my love life. I decided I would not fall in love with the guy anytime soon. All I wanted now was to focus on my studies, become successful in life, and satisfy myself with good things, without looking at anybody. I was never ready to get hurt again by a man, and I lost trust in Sophia, like I told Mom when she could just call me to forgive me. I told her even if I could forgive her, I would never regard her as my family again, that she had become a total stranger to me. Well, I guess my hate for my sister had its limits. It happened that Sophia, after many days of ghosting, she attempted to hurt herself by getting herself on some pills, but was quickly rescued by an attendant at the hotel where she was lodging. She was found unconscious and was quickly rushed to the hospital where she was revived. My mother called me and informed me about the shocking event. As opposed to know I felt about her, I immediately took off to the hospital where she was admitted. I felt pity for her. Upon seeing her, she was broken. I've never seen my gregarious sister this broken before. I told her I'd forgiven her, and I'll try to trust and love her again, hoping she's learned her lesson and would try to become better too. My mom, she was happy her two babies were finally getting together, and things would get back in place as some time goes by. As for me, I took consolation in that Oliver and his family are busy rotting in prison for the way that they treated thousands of people. Honestly, I felt so bad for OP of this story. I know at the end of the story, her sister attempted to hurt herself, and that's extremely critically sad as well. But you have to remember, this sister went behind OP's back and backstabbed her in one of the worst ways possible. And not only that, she did it with a man who was stealing money from thousands of innocent people. It was just an entire crap show. I need to know from you guys, who's the worst in the story? Is it the no good for nothing fiance? Or is it the sister who betrayed OP? Guys, drop your comments down below. Let's talk about it. If you've ever been involved in anything similar to this story, let's talk about your situation in the comment section. My name's Mr. Reddito. If you're new to the channel, hello and welcome. I read stories every single day. Some of the most dramatic stories I can find on the World Wide Web. If that sounds like something you're into, consider subscribing to the channel by clicking the button underneath this video that says subscribe. Guys, have an amazing day, and I'll see you tomorrow.